There we go.
Okay, all right. I've just started recording. Yeah, so this is Ingrid. So this is your close-up shot, and it's kind of the big finale, I guess. And I see that you've darkened the wall behind to sort of, I guess, put emphasis onto the your main character there. So I think that's working really well. And I see that you have maybe tried a bit more shaping on the guy there with the I think with the fill. I think maybe you could possibly go down a little bit more on the fill side just to get some more shaping on there. The rim's looking great, and the only thing that bumps for me is, I guess, let me just this shadow here, and I know it's coming from the key light, and it's the nose shadow. Would you say that's the case?
I think it's like a dirt spot actually,
Oh, it is. Okay.
but it does look like a shadow though.
I thought it was a shadow. Perhaps once you see
I
it
could
moving.
also just remove that if it's distracting. Yeah.
No, I think I'm sure if it's if you're watching it as an animation, it's moving around, then it won't bump as much. So yeah, just leave it. That's fine.
Okay.
And I think the only thing that I would say that you need to do with this piece is to just work on a bit more shaping on the fill side. So, and that would just mean, just darkening these areas here, on the fill, maybe a little bit here and here. The rim can stay as it is, and the only other thing would be perhaps maybe some. I know you've got some eye highlights there, but I'm wondering whether you could maybe move them. So they're a little bit. Maybe that's a little bit. Let's see whether that's. Sorry. Maybe a little bit closer to the pupils. This may or may not work, but I guess put more emphasis on the eye highlights. And it may be that what you've got there is actually fine as well. So what you got there, that looks better actually. So the way you've got it is looking just fine, and I would try and maybe bring it up a tad, just so it reads a little bit more. Not, this is obviously too much, but something like that perhaps. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could try that.
Yeah, just a little bit more. And then this again is probably too much. Something like that. And do you have the clip run as an animation?
Yeah, I posted like a step in the same post.
Okay, let's check it out. Ah, yes.
I'm afraid I've run into tough times. I'm afraid I've run into tough times. I'm afraid I've run into tough times. I'm afraid I've run into tough times.
Yeah, it's looking really nice. I would just try those two things, the eye highlights and maybe going down on the fill. And I think you're done.
Okay,
And
great.
that,
Thank
yeah,
you.
that dirt mark doesn't bump when you're watching it.
I'm afraid I've run into tough times.
Okay, I get it. All right. Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you.
That was that's a great shot. All right, Dino Chase. So I had a look at this link. It's awesome. It lets you like mark things up and everything. It's great. So Jordan, I'm just going to step through your shot real quick. Can you see my screen, Jordan?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay, cool. Just double checking. So this as an initial pass is working really well. I would maybe take away the volume lights, the volumetrics for the time being, just so you can just focus on just the straight lighting. And then you can, once you get that done and sort of in a good place, then we can reintroduce the volume rates, yeah?
Okay.
Just so you can focus purely on your lighting rather than the atmospherics. So obviously this is a very complicated shot lighting-wise because you've got two protagonists moving very quickly through an environment, and the camera is also moving and showing them at different angles. So at the beginning we have the camera is following the protagonist, and then at this point, maybe like a third of the way through, it is in front of the two protagonists. And so that presents some challenges lighting wise, and also some really good opportunities as well. So I see that already just off the bat you've got some great moments here. Like this is fantastic where you've got some nice rim lights, on the baby dino here and here as well. So these moments are great.
Thank you.
And then obviously once you're stepping through the environment, there are points where the key light or the sunlight's been occluded by the vegetation and the trees and so forth. So sometimes you'll lose that definition. And here, this guy here, and here, perhaps at this point there's a tree or element that's occluding, and so you lose some of that shaping. So that's where, if you go through your shot, that's where you have opportunities to add helper lights. It's a term we use at Weta, helper lights, to get that extra definition in when your key light is not able to, just to maintain that definition of the figures. And I think this one here I saw definitely there's an opportunity here for shaping as well. We can get we read that on this guy here, but obviously because of his position, he's behind the dino at this point, and there may be something that's occluding the light from him. At this point, you can add an additional area light to start to etch out that detail. And because we are in a forest, this gives you an opportunity to use a gobo on your area light. So you can choose like a black and white image of, say, like a leafy, like a leafy pattern, and then map that onto your area light, and so you'll get this kind of nice dappled sort of light, I guess, hitting the dinosaur. So it won't be like a straight hard edge. It'll sort of, at points it'll be intense, and then it'll soften and then get intense again because of the nature of your gobo. And you can experiment with a couple of types, a couple of gobo patterns to see which one you like. And so that gives off a really nice natural lighting, sort of rim lights, and that'll sort of add to your shot. And you'll see that naturally because the sunlight is coming through and hitting some of the geometry, that you do have some natural sort of dappling of the light there. So let's just, and obviously at this point here the camera is pointing up, and the dino is actually quite high off the ground. And this presents sort of a challenge to, where am I? Whoops, sorry. All right. So this presents a challenge for us lighting-wise, because we don't have, the dino so high up from the ground that the bounce is no longer sufficient to give illumination on sort of his underside. So, this presents an opportunity for us to, again, maybe place another helper light underneath to get, I guess, artificially create some sort of bounce light on the dino, just so he's not all completely in shadow here. The rim's looking pretty good. But at this point here, another helper light would really do the trick, I think, in terms of bringing up the levels on his tail, his claw, and his legs. And this is, obviously this is the pivotal moment where the T-Rex is trying to take a big chomp out of the dinosaur. So this is, again, it presents us with an opportunity to add some lights here that really sell the kind of ferocity of his teeth. So maybe somewhere behind the dinosaur here, or maybe on top, some sort of light that sort of gets some glint of the sharpness of his teeth. Oh, I've done it again, sorry. Again, here we have another opportunity to get some shaping on him. Again, at this point, you'd have another area light shaping him. think overall the ground seems to be sufficient for the bounce. When he's up in the air, obviously you need some help. But yeah, some nice moments here.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
No worries. Yep, the start looks pretty good in terms of like the levels. It's nice he goes into that, underneath that tree, that shadow is cast over him as he's going underneath. That's really nice. So obviously when you make these lights, these sort of helper lights to shape, sometimes you just need a little bit, obviously it is a very dark atmospheric scene, so you don't want to overlight. We don't want to be overlit on our lights.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it, really. So
Okay.
see how you go with that.
Thank you. I really appreciate the feedback. Yeah, like balancing the levels in the shot has been so challenging, especially it being a nighttime shot and being in a really dense forest. And then the original reference is like almost pitch black and it's made for theaters. So that's my reference, but it doesn't work very well if a recruiter is looking at it and they can't see anything because it's like it's so black you can barely see the raptors. But I'm sure if you were in a dark theater, that shot would look a lot easier to
Sure.
read rather than like my bright
Yep.
office. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
So go.
been
Yeah. So that's why you need your helper lights. They'll really help you out. And
thank you.
you place them, just kind of map out your shot, and maybe like
Mhm.
actually do a drawing. So just map out. Imagine if you've got this camera looking down on your scene, and you've got trace, trace the path of the two characters and the camera, and then maybe strategically map out where you put your, or your area lights along the scene, to kind of help you get your head around how to manage the placement of these lights. And the trick is to get enough of them in there so that they read, as the camera is moving around and they're moving around the scene, but not to overlight, because that's kind of, you know, once you place too many lights, you kind of get yourself in trouble where it starts looking flat rather than sort of contrast, nice and well shaped. So just be aware of that.
Thanks. I'll keep an eye on that then. Right now I have like a key light and a rim light following the raptor actually like at all times, but it's been hard because I tried to constrain it and then the animation broke midway, like it wouldn't stay constrained, so I had to hand key an area light on the raptor. That's kind of why he has such a consistent rim
Right.
in most areas. There's actually just a rim light hitting his back that's just tracking him. It's light linked actually.
I see.
But I think your suggestion to actually just use area lights integrated in the whole scene and just placing them strategically, I think is going to do a lot of a better job at getting them to read where they matter, like
Yeah,
you were
yeah,
saying.
yeah. Because you get, I think, it gives control back to you in terms of at which moment do you want the lights to really, you know, emphasize the characters, and at which moments do you want the lights to kind of recede a little bit. So, and with a constrained light, you don't have that control. It's kind of like always on or always off kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I would definitely recommend going the route of placing area lights within the scene that are just,
Mm.
static and not constrained, and then, um, run, you know, lay down a set of lights run the shot on 10s, see how it looks, and then,
Okay.
you'd iterate after that.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to giving you another update then as soon as I'm done with it. It's
Cool.
really love your notes, so I'm excited for it.
Great. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
All right, so we might move next to Forum. And I see that you've got 2 versions of your lighting here, and I actually like them both. I, I don't really favor one over the other. I mean, this one here, the darker version, does give more contrast and emphasis onto the characters, and this one works in a different way. It integrates the characters into the scene a lot more naturally, I guess, with the golden lights. And here I can see that the purples are kind of coming in the fill in the background there, and that serves to separate the characters from the background. So I guess it goes back to your intent. What do you want to show with this scene? Do you want to show the emphasis of the lighting on the characters bathed in the entire scene, or did you want to emphasize this kind of emotional moments where we have, their eyes are locked on each other, and this fill in the background, this bluish fill, serves to separate the characters from their environment. And this is, if you study color theory, you'll know that blues or bluish teals and orange reds contrast in the color spectrum. So with that in mind, and if your intent is to separate the characters and to really emphasize these moments, then I would go for the darker one. But if your intent is to, I guess, integrate the characters with the environment, then go with the golden one. But either one, I feel is really strong. The more I look at it, the more I think that this purple fill, darker version is probably the way to go. I just feel that the eye is naturally drawn to the figures, the characters more with this version. But otherwise, it's looking amazing. I love the raking light through here, and you've got the blinds occluding at the light here. That's a really nice touch, and you've got some nice key light on the figures there, and obviously you've got some shaping lights there on the back side with the rim, and that's working really nice as well. Overall, yeah, it's looking great. I would be pretty happy with where you're at. The only thing that bumps right now is perhaps this bicycle, this foreground element here. It starts to confuse the reading. I think I'm starting to read this as part of the bike because it's defocused, and I know this is sort of the right sort of arm piece for the sofa. So I would remove it. Or maybe put it somewhere else if it really needs to be in the scene. I feel like I can see that perhaps you're using it as a compositional element, so you're putting something in the foreground here to sort of have this closed kind of composition but it does bump a little bit for me. Perhaps back off on the depth of field. Maybe it's too buzzed, it's too defocused. Anyway, see how you go. But otherwise, looking really good. All right, thank you. Next we have Samuel. Samuel, so you've got this piece that Miguel's been working on as well. And it's got some really nice moments here as well. I'm really liking, you know, the raking late afternoon sun, you know, coming and washing over the characters. I know that you mentioned in your post whether the window is distracting. I don't mind it at all. I don't think it's distracting. You could perhaps maybe introduce a slight defocus on, you know, this backside of the room, so it's a little bit less defined. It's a little bit buzzed, so that we, you know, we don't get overly, you know, fixated by this sharp contrast here, and instead our eyes are more appropriately focused on the characters. Lighting wise, I like the levels that you have on the guy here. So the key levels are really nice. You know, obviously it's late in the day and the light is, you know, it isn't as harsh and as strong. It's that softer. You're almost getting to golden hour, so it's nice and gentle. That's always really nice. And you've got, you know, I see here you've got some bounce on the fill side. That's working really nice on her. And you've got a little bit of bounce on him as well. So that's working really well. I'm not sure whether you know, this carpet area here does start to draw our attention away from these figures. So I'm wondering whether you want to maybe think about maybe darkening it. Just so our eyes aren't sort of drawn away. The level on her that's really nice too. I'm liking that a lot. And this natural bounce that you've got here of the guy that's shaping him on the fill side is working really well. Love it. I'm wondering whether also with these bed sheets here, whether you want to maybe darken, go into the shader and maybe choose a darker setting. Just because it feels like the midtones are too kind of similar to what he's wearing. I would try and, you know, get in there, get into the shader, maybe darken it. And then we also have, let's see, what do we have here? It's the big moment where she's telling him off. What you doing? I feel like maybe this kind of pencil rim that you've got going here, yeah, this pencil rim that you've got going here is probably, maybe it's fine, maybe it just needs to be dialed down a little bit, but it feels a little bit forced right here. You could try, you know, placing a kind of a softer area light behind him and hitting her so that it's a bit more of a gradation rather than sort of a pencil thin line. I feel like on this side the key could be swung around a bit more so that you don't, it feels a little bit too frontal. Try and swing that key light around so it's a little bit more on the side, so you read, you know, that, and then so there are your, you know, really bright areas, and then it starts to fall off maybe at this point here rather than this point here. So we want a little bit of a core. This is obviously not the entire intended effect. She looks like a burn victim here, but I think you know what I mean. Just kind of darken this area here, and then so we have key. We have our key here, and then we have our shaping core, and then we have the rim light doing its thing. And same with this guy here, you know, swing the key light around this way so that we have shaping. No, it's brighter here. And then, you know, let's get us a big soft rim. So you've got a little bit going on, but maybe just a touch more. Okay, but overall it's got a really nice feel to it. I'm really liking your color palette. You know, you've got a warm light and a sort of purplish fill. That's some nice color latitude in the scene. You know, warm mid-tones and highlights on the skin, and your background and fill are sort of cooler. So there's some nice color latitude in that scene. Okay. Thank you, Samuel. Next up we have Mo. So Mo, I see that you've done some work on this. We've got our key lights or our sunlight sort of swung a little bit around more so that, you know, we're getting some more light on the top side here. I do feel like maybe just looking at the girl here that she does start to feel a little bit more front lit. So I would maybe try swinging the key light around a bit more. And I don't know what sort of light you're using, whether it's a directional light, which has parallel rays, or whether you're using, like a spotlight. But I would always recommend when lighting characters to, when possible, use an area light. So it's basically a piece of geometry or a plane that emits light, and it's the effect of that is that it gives you this soft shadow that rolls over from shadow to midtone and highlights really smoothly. And so they always use that when lighting characters in the film industry, because it's a very flattering effect that the light has. So I would recommend maybe using an area light. I get the feeling you may be using like a sun or a straight directional light, which has just straight lines. And that is, physically correct and all, but I feel like it gives off a really harsh shadow. And I suspect that you might be, because the grass here is lit up in a manner that feels like the rays are just parallel, so you get this very harsh effect. And so what you'll find if you start using an area light is that the grass will fall off into shadow around your characters just naturally. And so what that does is it redirects our attention from the grass onto our characters, which is what we want. Right now it's reading very flat, basically because there's no the eye doesn't know where to look. Basically, the eye doesn't know where to look because everything is lit at the same level. So we want to encourage the eye to look at the characters. So we can use, in lighting, we can use shadow and light to direct the eye. So I would either go into the shader of the grass and make it darker, or I would try and use an area light that just emphasizes the light on the characters. And also I would try and maybe work on darkening the sky as well. I feel like it could go a little bit darker. Again, just so we can focus our attention on our characters. Okay, so let's try that, and let's try redirecting the angle of the light so that we get a light that's nice, that's got some nice, that gives nice shaping to our characters here. Like that, so we want a little bit of fall off there, and here as well. Okay, thank you, Mo. Miguel, so I'm really digging your shot. I just feel like it does need the characters to lift off from the background a bit more, and I think it's all it takes is just going in there and whatever setup you've got to get, bounce off the figures. I would go in there and just crank that up. just so we read a bit more shape in them. I know that we we talked about the intense light in the back wall there. Does it does create this imbalance where we kind of want to look more at her, because the eye always goes to where the contrast is, so we kind of want to look at her, but maybe that's kind of the intent that you want, is that you want the eye to be more drawn to her rather than him. So that's, obviously that's up to you in terms of your intent, but I would try and lift up the midtones on all the shaping lights that you have, just so we have some more, some more shaping on them. But overall, that's looking pretty good. Thank you, Miguel. Dylan, I see we have our bunny character here that I've seen around before. I think maybe Miguel's had a go at lighting this guy. And I see that you've turned off some lights from your last iteration from my comments. And I think this is turning off some fill lights. And I see that you do have some kind of special here, some kind of light that's maybe pointing from the camera onto the bunny. I would maybe just take that out and just have that one key light and just see what you get, because I feel like the initial, I know you've toned it out in this version, but the initial version had like a room light here and some more fill lights here, and what it does is it just flattens everything out. So I'd like you to just go back to first principles and strip out this fill light and think about, just have a couple of goes at shaping, the rabbit just with that one light, and sort of see what sort of effect you have from the angles, like if you were to bring it down here, does it start to fall off from this angle, and how much of it do you want the bunny to receive that key light? Is it just this much, which means we swing the key light around a little bit more to the back side away from camera, and then we have we have this core. I always talk about this thing we call the core, which is the kind of the shadow area between the key lights and the fill or the kicker, and that serves to really shape your figure really well. If there's something that defines your character from one side, and then there's a bit of fall off, and then you may, after that, when you're happy with how that's shaping your character, you can then introduce your soft fill and maybe like a smaller, subtle rim light. But that's further down the track. So I'd like you to just go back to first principles and use one area light as your key and figure out where to place it so that it looks like it really shapes your character the most. Okay, thank you, Dylan. Duncan, I think I came back with you with this piece, but I just want to just reiterate what I said in my post, and that's basically just to introduce a key that really is more present in the shot. So a key that, it looks like your key's coming from this side. So think about, introducing this light in such a way that it starts to shape your characters. In such a way that it gives them more shape. It gives them depth. And from your shot, I see that the previous shot or the reference shots that you gave me, we see hits of light coming from the window, and that serves to give these really nice sort of pulls of light onto the environment. And you can use this opportunity to I guess direct the eye to where you want it to go. So maybe maybe there's a hint of light that comes through here, through the window, and it serves to direct our eye to what the cat's doing in this nice little gesture. And so we've got these moments where you've got this nice dappling of light, and it does create some nice tension, some nice contrast in the scene, and it also serves to direct our eye to what's happening. All right, so take a look at that. Otherwise, it's looking cool. Thank you. Diyor, you're like a machine. You just keep churning out stuff. It's amazing. This is looking amazing. I can see that you've got some nice, in the biz we call this Rembrandt lighting. You've got a key coming from here. It's hitting the face like that. And the Rembrandt effect is when it's angled over enough so that on the fill side, there is this triangle of light on the cheek that's quite pleasing. I see you've got that really well sorted. You can see again here, we've got that triangle. The only thing I would suggest would be, I could see that you've got the eye highlights when he's exclaiming at this point here. But I'm wondering when he's in repose whether you could possibly place something here just to get, that nice eye highlight to direct the eye to him. Obviously, this is way too much, but something like that. But otherwise, your shaping on the key is, I would say, it's pretty much there. It's looking great. You know, even if he's angled away from the key, he's still, you know, the fall off is still looking pretty nice. And when he's in repose here and his shoulders are facing the camera, this is looking pretty much spot on. Alrighty, looking good. Thank you very much. And Joey, here we have your environment shots. We've got these sort of nicely atmospheric lit. You know, we're in some sort of chamber palace, and your reference shots are from The Witcher, I can see. I see that you've got a pretty good match from your reference. You've got some nice bounce light coming off there and shaping the architectural detail there. It's looking really nice. I know you're trying to match the reference, but I'm wondering whether you could possibly etch out a little bit more detail in these shadow areas here. Maybe just something that, you know, would just catch the edge there a little bit more. But otherwise, that's looking great. Yeah, same here. I would try and place in a special light that sort of just really subtly edges out some detail. You know, here, there's a little bit going on here, but maybe just a little bit more emphasis in the shadow areas. Yep, same here. Just here. And it could just be just placing, you know, in a really subtle way, just an area like here, and just kind of angle it according to using Unreal, so you should get pretty quick responses. So, you know, angle it back and forth so that you do get some hits in the shadow areas. That's looking pretty nice. And this volume light coming down is working really well in sort of lighting up these areas here. This is weird. What's that? Oh, right. So that's just sort of an ornamental piece on the wall that's kind of catching the light coming from sort of top side down. Yeah, I would maybe try and lose that, because that does look a bit distracting. Maybe put it in shadow like the rest of the other elements. But overall, looking pretty nice and matching your reference pretty well. Alrighty, I think that's pretty much it. Does anyone have anything else to share?
Not currently, but thank you so much for popping in today and giving some awesome feedback. I appreciate it.
No worries. No worries. It was a pleasure. Thanks for dropping
Yeah,
by.
of course.
Alrighty.
Yeah,
So
thank you so much.
you're welcome. Yes, I'll be around the same time next week. So if you have some updates that you want me to look at, critique, just drop it in and I'll take a look.
Will do.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Have a great day.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you. Bye.
See you later.